Welcome to the programme, coming to you from Parliament House in Canberra. Sussan Ley's fragile leadership of the Liberal Party looks set to end at a party room ballot tomorrow, brought on by cataclysmic poll numbers in recent weeks. As we go to air tonight, Angus Taylor is gathering the numbers he needs. Here's political editor Jacob Greber.
A party in turmoil, trapped in a valley of tears. The hard maths of electoral politics swamping the Liberal Party's first female leader, at risk tonight of becoming a footnote in the party's potential story of ruin.
At the last election, which was the coalition's most devastating defeat, almost 5 million Australians voted for us. Over the last 9 months, according to the most recent opinion polls, 2.1 million of those people have since deserted the coalition. That's more than 200,000 votes a month. It's more than 50,000 votes a week. If it goes on, there'll be nothing left of the Liberal Party by the next election.
9 months into the job, as polls threatened political extinction, Sussan Ley was left with no choice but to call a party room meeting for tomorrow morning, after backbenchers petitioned her to spill the leadership.
We've been in a death spiral and we need to get out of it. Angus Taylor has the ability to do that.
And a conga line of young Turks from the party's Conservative wing lined up to demand change.
I have tried very diligently and sincerely, despite not voting for Sussan 9 months ago, to make her leadership a success. It is with great regret that it hasn't been.
And we also need to do better at engaging with the Australians that we know should be voting Liberal but aren't, particularly young women.
By late afternoon, the list of shadow cabinet and backbenchers deserting Ley cracked double figures, including her Queensland LNP factional ally James McGrath and Senate leader Michaelia Cash. Sussan Ley has given Conservatives pretty much everything they demanded, from the dumping of net zero to reunifying with the Nationals against the wishes of some of her closest supporters, bridging a seemingly impossible gulf between moderates who need to rebuild the party's stocks in the cities and the right wing, which is in full panic over One Nation's surge in the polls. If Sussan Ley gets rolled tomorrow, as seems increasingly likely, those problems will not go away for the next leader.
People need to be given an opportunity to prove themselves, and they deserve the benefit of support from their team as they're engaging in a difficult process. And there is no more difficult job than being an opposition leader, and about as difficult a job as an opposition leader is becoming an opposition leader after the result we got the last federal election.
As news broke this morning that Angus Taylor would challenge, Sussan Ley launched a social media counter-barrage. 3 posts during question time alone, including a plea for a better future. An opening for cynics, perhaps, to point out that she doesn't have much of a record of success to run on.
This is not solely her fault. I take my share of responsibility for this. Every member of Parliament must take responsibility for this. This is collective responsibility. And I believe we need to make a collective decision to move into a different direction.
Ley's authority over the party has been in doubt from the day she won against Angus Taylor after the May election by a handful of votes. Since then, she stumbled, hurt by overreach, implying the Prime Minister's T-shirt endorsed anti-Semitism and suggesting Penny Wong was indifferent to the agony of Bondi.
I didn't see Penny Wong attend a single funeral. I haven't seen Penny Wong shed a single tear.
And bouts of questionable strategic judgment, such as goading the Prime Minister into recalling Parliament early, only to be wedged on the government's post-Bondi vilification laws when he did.
Sussan is a decent person. She is a good Liberal. She has been dealt many tough hands in the last 9 months. But I no longer had confidence in her ability to turn this ship around, to get our party back on track before the next election.
After months of subterranean stalking, Sussan Ley's opponents have at last emerged into the light. Both sides claim the numbers are tight and a frenzy of last-minute lobbying is now underway. But aside from a change in leader, it's not entirely clear how dumping Ley would overhaul the party's policy approach.
I believe that Australia is worth fighting for.
In a brief statement to the Parliament today, Taylor lent into familiar Liberal virtues of smaller government and lower spending, and a reference to what he calls Australia's threatened way of life.
Our Liberal priority must be to protect our way of life and restore our standard of living that has been trashed under Labor. That's our mission, because both are under assault under Labor.
Angus Taylor's supporters insist he would do better than Ley, even as one Conservative warrior fretted that he lacks fire in the belly.
That was one of the most amazingly underwhelming speeches I've ever heard from someone putting up their hand to challenge, who's had a chance even to think about it.
As the Liberal Party descends into the zero-sum politics of leadership, one striking thing about this challenge is how it threatens to further entrench the party's tribal divisions.
So it's a good day to be a Conservative, and I think Angus will make a good leader. As we stand today, I think Sussan's got the choice of how her leadership ends. That's in her hands now, and I hope as a party we do this in a way that is in the best interest of Australians.
Liberal frontbencher Melissa Price from WA has publicly declared loyalty to the leader. She joins me now. Melissa Price, you declared loyalty, but it was not entirely unambiguous. Will you support Sussan Ley in the spill tomorrow?
Yes, I will. And to be 100% clear, since 2013, since I became the member for Durack, I have supported the leader, regardless of who they are. Tony Abbott, Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison, and then obviously Peter Dutton as well.
But always endorsing the leader isn't an unambiguous endorsement of Sussan Ley and her abilities. Do you believe she can turn around the fortunes of the Liberal Party?
Yes, I do believe that. I think that from the very beginning she hasn't had the full support of the party room. And dare I say it, you know, she hasn't had the full support of much of the media either. They've sort of gone out of their way to try and, I felt, undermine her. I can't point to individuals or media outlets, but that's the sense that I've got. And in fact, a lot of women have actually said that to me. Gee, people aren't really giving her a go, are they? So I think from the very beginning, I don't think she got the support that she needed. So I think, she's been trying to do a job with a hand tied behind her back, and that's not good for anybody.
Now, 3 of your WA colleagues, Michaelia Cash, Dean Smith and Matt O'Sullivan, all resigned today. Did they try and persuade you to join them as a group?
No, they did not.
And has anybody in Sussan Ley's camp, either Sussan Ley herself or any of her supporters, offered you any inducement to back her?
No, not at all, not at all. I've spoken to Sussan, of course I would, she's a friend of mine, so it's pretty tough times for everybody, particularly tough for her. So, I checked in with her, had a good chat about, what the process is going to be tomorrow. Nothing what people wouldn't expect, as a conversation between a couple of friends and colleagues.
So as things stand at the moment, what is your read of the numbers?
So I think the first step, as people will understand, is that we have to have the spill motion. So we have to vote on whether we are going to have the spill or not. I think that's very tight. I think if the spill motion should get up, then my sense is that Taylor probably has just got his nose in front.
Now, Angus Taylor, the language he used is, he says the Liberal Party has lost its way. James Paterson today says this is a change or die moment. Why are they wrong? You've seen the polls, you've seen the numbers.
We're really not doing very well at all. Why are they wrong? Well, we do need a change, but I think we could have had a change under Sussan. So I think it's been very difficult circumstances for her. She's had 2 National Party breakups, get back together again. I think she's handled both of those situations incredibly well with very little support, I might say. And I don't think anyone else could have handled it as well as what she did. And being able to settle the net zero issue was a huge issue. And really that was her leading the charge to make sure we settled that. So I think it is a matter of time. Yes, of course the polls aren't good and we do need more policies out there. I mean, that goes without saying.
And do you hold her responsible for that?
Well, I think, and look, I'm not on the front bench. I'm in shadow. I'm not in shadow cabinet. I'm on the front bench. I think, from what I understand, from my colleagues tell me, we're very close to actually coming public with our immigration policy. I'd like to think we're also very close to our housing policy as well. Obviously, they're interconnected. And then we had the dreadful Bondi massacre. And what colleagues tell me is that as a result of that, it seemed to be the most sensitive thing to do was to not talk about that policy publicly. So my expectation is that that's clearly the first cab off the rank, and that's probably what Sussan was about to do next. And I think that will have settled things. But, you know, we've obviously got a lot more work to do, Sarah. I'm not denying that.
Let's just look at what James Paterson said. He spelled out the crash in support for the Liberal Party over recent weeks and months. He put it in these terms: more than 200,000 votes a month, 50,000 votes a week, 7,000 votes a day. You think that you could stay with the current leadership team despite what is literally hemorrhaging support?
Yeah, I do think we could have stayed. And the question no one's really answering is, are these once upon a time Liberal voters, they're now One Nation voters, are they ever coming back? You know, that's the question we've got to be able to answer.
And do you believe that Sussan Ley would be more capable of bringing back voters who've gone to One Nation than Angus Taylor would?
Yeah, I think where we sit now, yes, I do. Now, I mean, I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting Angus isn't a very capable, well-educated, you know, I've no doubt that he will make a good leader. But I didn't think we needed to roll Sussan because of the situation we're in. Yes, I think everyone's got to take responsibility for the situation we're in, Sarah. Of course, the leader, you know, they're the top of the tree and they're the easy target. But I think also everyone who's sitting around that cabinet table, I think they've got to have a look at themselves and think, OK, what could I have done differently?
You suggested today that you might consider standing as deputy leader. Is that actually what you're going to do tomorrow, or was that a message to Jane Hume that she shouldn't have abandoned the moderates, abandoned her tribe within the party?
Oh, no.
Are you standing?
Oh, well, that's definitely no message to Jane. I was pretty clear about it. But as I explained at the outset, there's a few steps that we need to get through. We need to have the spill motion. We need to have the vote for either Sussan or Angus or anyone else who wants to throw their hat in the ring. It's at that point. So if Sussan remains the leader, then I won't be contesting the deputy role. But if Sussan is no longer the leader, then that's when I'll make my decision about whether I throw my hat in the ring or not.
And just a question about the post the election result. Obviously, the party was conducting what was supposed to not just be an election review, but a root and branch look at the Liberal Party and its politics, its offering to the voters. If Angus Taylor wins, what happens to that review of the party? Will we still see it and understand what people think went wrong?
Well, I hope so. I hope that we at least get the key messages out there, whether we all want to see it in all its glory. I'm not sure that would be terribly helpful, but there must be some key messages.
It's obviously going to have to contain some messages about Angus Taylor, isn't it?
Yeah, I should think so.
We'll see those?
I would think so. I think Angus would want to have that sort of fearless and frank conversation. I mean, let's face it, we need to have those conversations. We can't have people hiding in the dark saying, oh, no, that might be something negative about me.
So it's your expectation that all of that will be made public?
Yes, well, enough of it so we will all understand, you know, the direction that we believe we were going wrong. But, you know, what happens is, Sarah, we have a review after every election and then things change over the course of the term and we still are looking back over 3 years, and that's a problem for us. We can't do that anymore.
And just tell me, how does a Liberal Party now dominated by a resurgent Conservative wing in the party win back metropolitan voters who are crucial to your future electoral success?
Yeah. Well, metropolitan voters, they are interested in policy. They too are subjected to this very bad Labor government that we've got at the moment. They care about their children getting into homes. They care about making sure we've got a really excellent immigration policy that's focused on a good skill set to help us to build our nation. So I think the same issues, not exactly the same issues, because I do represent the largest electorate in Australia, in Durack in Western Australia. A lot of the issues are exactly the same.
Melissa Price, thank you very much indeed. Tomorrow we'll check in with you again.
My pleasure.
Tomorrow. Thank you very much
Thanks,
indeed.
Sarah.
Government ministers now, indifferent to the dangers of hubris, it would seem, today tested their lines on Angus Taylor.
It looks to me like in the modern Liberal Party, an incompetent bloke beats a woman any day of the week, and the only real qualification for leadership is XY chromosomes.
I'm not sure that Senator Paterson was being especially helpful to the Liberal cause when he described the member for Hume, and I'm quoting, as the smartest policy brain in shadow cabinet. The smartest policy brain in shadow cabinet, Mr Speaker. You can read that one or two ways. I don't know what's more worrying, that it's false or that it might be true, Mr Speaker.
And it doesn't matter who sits in that chair. The problem isn't the leader. The problem is that whoever sits there will just be another Liberal.
Hubris indeed. Liberal Senator Alex Antic from South Australia is from the Conservative wing of the party. He's declared his support for Angus Taylor and he joins me now. What does Angus Taylor need to do, in your view, to arrest the decline in the Liberal Party's fortunes?
Well, Sarah, first of all, it has been a pretty significant decline. I mean, we heard Senator Patterson today go through those numbers, stark numbers. 5 million people voted for us at the last election and we're losing something like 200,000 a month. That's huge numbers on the poll. So there's a very significant slide. And my view remains consistent, as it has always, and that is the Liberal Party is best when it is speaking to its base. And that clearly is not happening now. We've seen that drift to One Nation, now polling at 22% on the latest primary vote in the News poll. Now, to me, that means getting back to true Liberal values, which are, speaking for families, speaking on the economy, of course, but I think we have to start grappling with some of the other issues as well, including, of course, immigration. Immigration numbers, I think, is probably the big one.
Just want to come back to what Melissa Price said. She said that your leader just hasn't been given enough time. She's been through 2 difficult splits with the National Party. She hasn't had enough time. If you give her enough time, she would be able to turn those numbers around.
Yeah, and look, sure, that may be the case, but unfortunately, if we keep going on at that rate that I described earlier on, there isn't going to be a Liberal Party before the next election. We're not that far out. We've got 2 and a bit years, and as we know with the election cycle, there isn't much time in the middle. So, look, time is of the essence, and I don't think there is an appetite, I feel, in the party room for continuing on with the current status.
How much time do you give Angus Taylor to turn the party's fortunes around?
Well, look, it needs to be quick, and I have said that to him. I think he needs to come out swinging, and I think he needs to come out with some strong policies, and he will. He's not to be underestimated, Angus. He's a very, very smart man. He's a very decent man, and I think he's going to resonate well. But there is a lot of work to do. I mean, in some ways of thinking about it, we are 300 metres down in the last leg of a relay, and that's hard to catch up. So time is of the essence. You
said he's a decent man. I think there's no question about that. But you also said, particularly when at a time when people were raising the question as to whether or not you might have an interest in One Nation, you said One Nation is successful because they have, quote, real people in their ranks. So is a private school alumni, a private schoolboy, an alumni of Sydney University and a Fulbright scholar to Oxford the right antidote to Pauline Hanson?
I did for a minute forget that I was on the ABC, so thank you for that Culture Wars type introduction. I don't accept that characterisation.
Well, hold on, let's just deal with that for a second. Were there or were there not rumours, questions being asked as to whether or not you might have an interest in One Nation?
There were rumours about that. I'm certainly not objecting to the rumours. What I'm saying is that characterisation of Angus as somehow being not a real Australian because he went to a private school and he was fortunate.
It's a question. It's not a characterisation. It's a question as to whether or not someone with that background is the antidote to One Nation, whom you described as being successful because they have real people.
And Angus is a real person. I mean, that's pretty clear. And I think he will resonate well with real people, real Australians. I mean, the Angus that I know is the sort of guy you can have a beer with at the front bar. I mean, look, that will be the test for him. But I think, it is true to say that One Nation are resonating because they are speaking their minds. And Pauline, who I know the ABC loves to promote women in politics, but doesn't seem to get much of a leg up from this station. Not that I'm shilling for Pauline Hanson, but she's
been a guest on my
program. I'm sure she has, but she is. If she was from the left of politics, she would have more letters after her name than an alphabet. She's run a successful political organisation, and I find it staggering that she's not talked about more in those terms. Not that I need to pump her tyres, but to illustrate the point that she is an everyday Australian talking that language. Angus is going to do that too. So if he is successful, and we don't know that yet, but if he is, I've got no doubt that he will resonate well.
I'm just listening to your enthusiasm. Are you more at home in One Nation than you are in the current Liberal Party?
Well, that's a ridiculous thing to say. I'm a member of the Liberal Party, and I have no intention of crossing to One Nation. Having said that, I get on very well with the members of the Senate for One Nation. They are very good people. And I think, they do lead the way in terms of the blueprint. I think that if the coalition is to be successful, if the Liberal Party is to be successful, it does have to follow some of that path that One Nation have shown.
Be specific about that. What is it that you want to see Angus Taylor do? In some ways, you know, not following, but at least understanding where One Nation is successful. Where do you want to see the Liberal Party?
Well, look, I think the most important thing is a clear position on immigration.
What should that look like?
Well, that's not for me to suggest, but we don't even know the numbers at this stage. The government won't tell us exactly. We hear numbers including 500,000 in 12 months.
What do you want that number to be?
Look, my position has been as it is. I want Australia to be put first. If Australians can't find homes and Australians can't afford goods and their infrastructure, their water supply and their housing is under stress, then that needs to be reduced significantly.
Do you want to see a significant change in the Liberal Party's immigration policy?
Well, we don't have one, as you know, at the moment. I mean,
there is one sitting in a drawer.
There may well be. I haven't seen it, but so it is difficult to say whether I want to shift in it if I haven't seen the original one. But I do think that needs to be priority number one. That is the issue that people talk to me about all the time, and it is significant and it is really hurting people.
And are you looking for a radical move in that area?
Well, what's radical? I mean,
you know, ending immigration for a period of time, for example.
Look, I mean, the reality is we need small amounts of immigration at all times. There are always skills we need. What we don't need is 500,000 people coming in every year. That's just not. That is not going to make life easier for Australians.
We won't spend time on fact checking today. Would you have preferred Andrew Hastie to be the candidate?
No, look, I mean, Andrew is a very difficult scenario for me because I know and like both of them and they both have different attributes. And I think Andrew, at some stage, will get his opportunity, whether it's now or 10 years from now or 5 years from now. And he'll do a very good job as well. But I was never put in the position of having to pick between the two of them, which unfortunately
just come back to that question of time and the numbers that you described, the numbers that you quoted that James Paterson so eloquently described earlier today. How much time does Angus Taylor have before people like you in your wing of the party decide that you have to put Andrew Hastie in?
There is no discussion of that as far as I'm aware. I may be a little more removed from this than others, so I don't know what the discussions are going on. But look, we are coming up to an election cycle, and this is the reality here. If the party's fortunes don't change, there will be many, many colleagues in this building who are not here come the next election. So, as I said, time is of the essence.
There are moderates in the party, obviously, who've been talking a lot recently, and Andrew Bragg amongst them, but many of the moderates in the party who have been talking about the importance of holding on to moderate values in the Liberal Party in order to win back those crucial metropolitan seats which are the only path to you securing government. So how does a resurgent Conservative, I put this question to Melissa Price, how does a Liberal Party with the Conservative wing resurgent, how does that win back the metropolitan seats?
Well, I mean, look, you don't have to go back very far. I know times have changed a little bit, but in 2019, at the Morrison-Miracle election, Australia's demographics were slightly different. They weren't that much different. And the message that was put out to the community was one of saving the weekend, and really it was a message pitched at Middle Australia, which did win a lot of those seats. A lot of the people that were elected there are not here now. Something changed between the next period. So my view is we have to, as President Reagan said, dance with the one that brung you. And it's a great line, and it's never been truer. Metropolitan Australians will vote for a Liberal Party that is true to its values. They will.
Let me just ask you this question briefly. We are seeing, obviously, major shifts in right-wing politics around the world. Right. The reform movement in the United Kingdom, obviously MAGA in the United States. Can you imagine a future where the Liberal Party is in coalition with One Nation?
Look, well, you couldn't rule it out, could you? I mean, the reality is that right-wing politics is changing. Populism has a strange sort of pejorative nature that's given to it. I never quite understood that because ultimately politics is about people and populism. So we have to learn those lessons. I mean, we are, as always, a little bit behind the times, but those lessons have come here. I have been talking about them for a very long time. I've been talking about the pinch of One Nation for a very long time. And, you know, we see places like Germany where governments are formed with multi-party coalitions. I think in order to be successful at returning to government, we need to be alive to that possibility.
Should Angus Taylor be paying attention to Nigel Farage and what he's doing?
I think more people should be paying attention to Nigel Farage. I think it's a phenomenal period of time in UK politics. And I got to know Nigel a little bit when he was in Australia, and I found him to be exactly as I described, a very knockabout sort of guy who's appealing to people. And look, frankly, I think people are very, very tired of sound bites in politics. I think they're sick of TikTok videos. I don't want to hear any more music. I don't want to see any more doing jiu-jitsu. I just want to hear what people think, and I don't want to see the talking points. And I think Aussies are with me.
Alex Antic, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, Sarah.
I appreciate it. Now, Liberal MPs are counting numbers as we speak. Not Alex Antic, because we've still got him captured in the studio. Here's 7:30's political editor, Jacob Greber, with me for an update. Jacob, what's the very latest you've got?
Look, there is a sense that the ground's slipping away there for Sussan Ley tonight. There are various versions of the count that have come to me. The notable thing is that we've had a few new names declare themselves to be withdrawing from the shadow cabinet. The biggest, of course, of that are James McGrath, who's an LNP senator from Queensland. He's an important figure who supported Sussan Ley. He's facing a pre-selection in a few weeks' time. He has withdrawn his support. And the other big one tonight, the other one to fall, is Dean Smith, senator from WA, real Liberal Party institutionalist. He voted for Sussan Ley in that first clash with Angus Taylor last May after the election. He's indicated he's now shifting to Angus Taylor. So that middle ground, I guess you could call it, between the Conservatives and the moderates, they're peeling away one by one. So I think it's starting to look very, very difficult for Sussan Ley. And the other question now that everyone's asking is who's the deputy? And that's a much tougher race, I think, to pick at this stage of the night. And it is very fluid.
Now, do we think we should put aside from this point on the idea of a third candidate coming through? Is that over now?
I wouldn't rule it out entirely because anything's possible with these things, but it does seem to be firming up that momentum for Taylor to give him a go. Let's see if, everyone thinks they can do that top job. Everyone has that view that they've got the special sauce. Well, it's your turn, Angus. And so there's a bit of that sense. Give him a go. And actually, there's also a touch of anger there from the moderates, who have been saying quietly behind their palms, we'll be back here in 3 months or in 12 months. Let's see how it goes. So there's a sort of dark humour there as well.
Just to stay with that idea of the deputy, can you explain how that multi-cornered contest is looking as we go to air tonight?
Well, it looks like we have at least 3 candidates for that. Senator Jane Hume, who would make a lot of sense from the point of view of balancing that ticket in gender terms. You would have Angus Taylor as the leader and Jane Hume as the deputy. There's a complication there. Traditionally, she's from the Senate. That's not where the deputy normally resides. Not a barrier in any law or piece of constitution, so they can do what they like there, but that's a thing. She's got a mixed set of reviews inside the party. She was blamed for policies like work from home, but she's also a very, very good performer. She communicates well, can take the fight up to Labor. So she's in that sort of, that's where you'd park her. Ted O'Brien, the Treasury spokesman, is the deputy now. You would have to say he's been quite successful in putting roadblocks up and spanners in the works for the Treasurer on the budget, on the fiscal position. So there are Liberals who think he's actually doing a good job. Why would you knock him off now from where he is? But obviously the gender balance is out there. And then I guess the last one is Dan Tehan. And
sorry, Jacob, I was interrupting you there, but just a question for you. In terms of that contest, there's a lot of people putting their names up. Are we confident that it's going to narrow down to the names and numbers that you just gave us, or could the spill for the deputy leadership turn into a much stranger, more willing contest tomorrow?
Well, I'm not sure I can answer that definitively because these things are in a closed room. Much as you and I would love to be in there listening to the discussion. But this is the moment when ambitious people put themselves forward. And if you don't do that, you become wallpaper in these rooms. And so we've got a group now having a crack, it looks like, for the deputy's position. And it's a very important position because it tells the story of the broader Liberal Party. If you have a series of blokes at the top, that sends a certain message to a certain group of voters. If you have a bit more of a mix, that is also probably beneficial. And look, the government is all over this. They're already making lots of comments about about Taylor's back and he's got the right set of chromosomes and that's why he's the leader and Sussan Ley's on the way out. So it's a very real issue for the Liberal Party. The jewels that they lost in 2022 and 2025 were to women in the cities, and that is a big problem for that party.
Jacob, thank you very much indeed. Talk to you soon and often.